Thank you. Please be seated. All right, good morning, everyone. We're going on the record now in this case. Let me first confirm through our tech people, is the matter being live streamed and is the feed working properly? We get a confirmation on that. Presume it is. Madam Court Reporter, are you ready? All right. Okay, and I just got a confirmation as well that the matter is being broadcast per the court's order. This is case CR 22-21-1624, State of Idaho versus Lori Daybell, Fremont County case. This is the time scheduled for sentencing today. The defendant is here appearing in person along with her attorneys, Jim Archibald and John Thomas. The state's represented by Rob Wood, Rachel Smith, and Lindsay Blake. At this time, I do want to inquire of counsel from the state who will be making the sentencing recommendation today.
I will, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wood. And for the defense, who's going to be making the sentencing recommendation?
I will, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Thomas, thank you. A couple of preliminary matters before we get started with the substance of the sentencing hearing. Court would first note there is a conduct order that's been entered in this proceeding governing this courtroom. The court is live streaming the hearing today. However, for those in attendance, there's no provision to allow any type of recording, either audio or video, in this proceeding. So that's prohibited. In addition, the court requires that any electronic devices be turned off or put in a silent mode. If any cell phones or other devices go off and cause any disruption during the proceedings, they'll be taken by the bailiffs in this case. And also, the court would note, as part of the conduct order, there's a prohibition against any kind of disruptive behavior. So no outbursts or other types of acts will be tolerated in this sentencing hearing. We'll maintain order as we did throughout these proceedings in this case and throughout the trial as well. So I appreciate all of the presence of our bailiffs here to enforce the order. And I would ask the compliance of all those in attendance to follow carefully those admonishments in the court's order. Another matter I'll bring up as we start for the sentencing hearing. Over last week on Friday and through the weekend, there were some motions filed. There was an objection to the pre-sentence report and a motion to strike victim impact statements. The court took up the pleadings of those, and given the timing and without adequate time to respond and have a hearing, court went through the matters and issued orders on both of those motions. So I consider them resolved, but let me just confirm with counsel. Mr. Wood, did the state receive copies of the court's orders pertaining to those two motions?
Yes, we did.
All right. And Mr. Thomas, did the defense receive those orders as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, counsel. And with the sentencing hearing today, I'll go through some procedural history of the case first. Ms. Vallow, at the time of your arraignment in this case, which was on April 19th, 2022, you were informed that an indictment had been filed against you by the state of Idaho, charging you with the following crimes: 2 counts of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception, 2 counts of first-degree murder, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and 1 count of grand theft. At the time of your arraignment, you were advised of the potential penalties involved with those charges, your constitutional rights, your plea options, and the legal consequences of exercising each of those options. You pled not guilty to the charges. Later, during trial, an amended indictment was filed by the state. A jury trial in your case took place in Ada County, Idaho, with jury selection beginning March 27th of this year, 2023. And as I mentioned during the trial, an amended indictment had been filed. The case was submitted to the jury for their deliberations on May 11th of this year, and on May 12th, the jury returned their verdict, finding you guilty of the following counts of that amended indictment. Count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception. Count 2, first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan. Count 3, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Ballo and grand theft by deception. Count 4, first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Ballo. Count 5, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell. And count 6, grand theft. After you were found guilty by a jury of your peers, the sentencing hearing was scheduled. Pursuant to Idaho law, the court then ordered the preparation of a pre-sentence investigation report, which will be referred to throughout this proceeding as a PSI. And the court's considered that report for sentencing today. The court did order a full PSI, which would include orders for a behavioral health assessment, a mental health examination, substance abuse assessment, and all pursuant to Idaho Code 1925-24. However, you chose not to participate in the pre-sentence process, so much of that information that could have been included for my consideration in the report has not been included. I've received and I have carefully reviewed the pre-sentence investigation report, and a copy of that report was provided to both the state and the defendant through her attorney. I'll ask the state at this time then, was the state able to review the PSI?
Yes, we were.
Mr. Wood, in that report, and I know it's a voluminous report, 430 pages, but were there any sections or parts of the report that you believe need to be clarified or corrected after your review?
Just very briefly, Your Honor, there were multiple victim impact statements submitted with that report. We don't usually comment on those, but just for purposes of the record, in one of those victim impact statements, there was reference made to Tammy Daybell dying by a pillow. On the record, for the purposes of the record, the state has no evidence that that happened that way. There was also reference to that we don't know whether or not the defendant was there at Tammy Daybell's death. And just for purposes of the record, and as it was shown in trial, we are aware she was not at the location Tammy Daybell was murdered. She was in Hawaii. Again, our concern, we just wanted to be clear for purposes of the record so that an allegation could not be made down the road that the state had provided evidence or information to victims that we had not, one, that wasn't true, or two, hadn't been provided to the defense.
All right, regarding those statements then, the court would most likely strike those from the record based on those comments. The court would also note in ruling on motions over the weekend, I further ordered stricken certain parts of victim impact statements. Mr. Thomas, any objection to me striking those comments in those statements?
Your Honor, Mr. Archibald is going to address this portion if that's okay with the court.
Very well. Mr. Archibald.
We've reviewed the court's order striking portions of those victim impact statements. We do not object to the court ordering those stricken.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Archibald. So back to you, Mr. Wood. Could you clarify with some specificity where those specific comments were located? And the court will go through and what they would refer to as redlining. I'll line those out in the final PSI that gets submitted into the case file.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. They were contained in Ms. Hoban's PSI, or I'm sorry, victim impact statement. And if the court would like, I can find the page number of that.
I think just to reference for the record, if you could reference the page number, then I will go in and redline those revisions to the report before it's finalized.
It is in the third paragraph on page 2.
Okay, the court sees those comments as mentioned in the third paragraph of page 2. The court will go and redact those out of the victim impact statement. And if the Ms. Hoban intends to make a statement, I would ask that she refrain from making any further comments to that extent. And we'll get those filed. Other than that, Mr. Wood, then is there any other requested clarification or correction to the PSI?
No, there is not.
All right. Let me next move to the defense then. Mr. Archibald, in regards to the PSI filed in the case, does the defense have any further objection or anything you wish clarified or corrected in the report?
Your Honor, on June 13th, I submitted 661 pages to the pre-sentence investigator that I believe dealt with the health of the defendant. 660 pages. I didn't know how many of those pages would be included in the report. Turns out only 27 pages were included. The 27 pages do include Dr. Watson's psychological opinion and also Dr. Cunningham's. So I appreciate the pre-sentence investigator including those two reports, but I asked for additional reports regarding the health of the defendant. The court has now issued an opinion this morning ruling on that, but my objection to the pre-sentence report stands.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Archibald. The court would note in the order issued this morning, in its entitled order on objection to the PSI, court went through an analysis on the statutes and the rules as relating to the prior competency information and why I found it was inappropriate to include in the PSI as the investigator noted. And so that will be the court's order at this time on those submissions. Any other matters in the report you wish clarified or corrected, Mr. Archibald?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, counsel. Let me confirm with counsel then too, Mr. Thomas and Mr. Archibald, was your client able to review the report as well?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, I will note that I'll rely on that report then with those redactions in fashioning the sentence today. Moving now to the question of whether there will be any witness statements or testimony here proffered today. For the defense, are you offering any statements from any witnesses today, Mr. Thomas or Mr. Archibald?
No, Your Honor. Just
All right.
Ms. Vallow may speak on
Very
her
well.
behalf.
So the defendant, I'll address that. She'll have a right of allocution if she wishes. From the state, Mr. Wood, is the state intending to call any witnesses to testify or victims to provide oral impact statements today?
Your Honor, the state will not be calling any evidentiary witnesses. However, there are 4 victims who wish to be heard. The victims, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow's brother, Colby Ryan, has asked that we read his statement into the record. So with permission of the court, I will do that on his behalf. After that, Samantha Gwilliam, Tammy Daybell's sister, has asked to be heard. Vicky Hoban, Tammy Daybell's aunt, has asked to be heard. And Kay Woodcock, JJ Vallow's grandmother, has asked to be heard.
Very well. The court has previously determined that these are either victims or designated representatives under Idaho statute to be able to provide statements in this case, given the murder convictions. So the court will allow for them to make their comments today. Let me just indicate then how the hearing will proceed going forward. So first, the court will consider those victim impact statements that may be read into the record or offered by those individuals. After that, I intend to hear the recommendations on sentencing from you, Mr. Wood. Once the state's concluded then making its recommendations, Mr. Thomas, you may make recommendations on behalf of your client, Ms. Vallow. And then finally, Ms. Vallow, if you wish to address the court directly, you can do that after your attorney has done so. So with that in mind, Mr. Wood, I'll start by going through the victim impact statements the state intends to introduce, and you can either read into the record or call your first victim to make a comment at this time. One more point of clarification, sorry. The victims, if they do wish to speak, will speak at the podium over to my left. And I'll note that that is not being filmed for this proceeding, so it won't be shown on the video. That's how the court's arranged the courtroom, just so counsel knows. So, Mr. Wood, if you'd like to either read a comment or have your first victim speak, you can do that now.
Thank you. Before I do that, Your Honor, I did neglect to say that Samantha Gwilliam will also be reading into the record the statement of her father, which was included in the PSI if the court permits.
All right, the court will so permit that on your request.
And with that, then we would ask that Samantha be allowed to make her statement now.
Very well. Ms. William, then if you'd like to come forward and you can provide your statement at that lectern right in front of you. And please state your name for the record as you begin.
My name is Samantha Gwilliam. Do you want me to do my father's after mine or do it before mine?
It's up to you.
I'm going to read his first. This is what my father wrote. His name is Ronald Douglas. He is writing on behalf of myself and my now deceased wife. I would like to share thoughts about the impact of the actions of Lori Daybell on our family. Tammy's death was unexpected and had a profound impact on all of us. We were barely into our recovery process when we learned of Chad's new marriage exactly 2 weeks after losing Tammy. We had no knowledge of missing children until we were visited by law enforcement officers and informed of Tammy's disinterment and autopsy. The drama began to unfold and the reason for the quick burial became apparent. Over the course of the following months, the ensuing revelations of deceit and intrigue caused extreme emotional stress on my wife, Phyllis. We became estranged from the Daybell children and began losing the close relationships we had with them. I'm sure they feel awkward about their father's actions and how Tammy's death was affecting us. We value them as grandchildren and want to keep them close to us. While Phyllis was already battling her leukemia of over 30 years, the emotional stress of this drama seemed to accelerate her declining health. Her remaining months of life were full of strain and heartache. Lori entered Chad's life long before we were aware of any interaction between them. In retrospect, we see that Chad was living a double life and the bonds of his family were being eroded due to his involvement with Lori. The eternal ramifications of her actions are yet to be calculated. Lori needs to pay for her actions according to the laws of mortals. She will still answer according to the laws of God when she passes from this life. Ron Douglas. This is my statement. Over the last few years, I've often thought about what I would ever say to you, Lori. I've often thought about what my sister would have said too. The minute I found out that Chad had quickly remarried after the death of my most beloved sister, Tammy, it confirmed what I had always felt. You see, the minute I received the phone call that she had died, I knew something had happened to her, but I didn't know why I would feel that way. So when we were told by Chad that he had married you and that it had happened 2 weeks after Tammy had been buried, my heart knew. I researched you like any true woman would to find out who you were. What did I find? Lies. Everything about you that you tried to tell others is a lie.
At this point, I'm going to object. I don't believe this falls within the statute or within the Idaho Constitution or within Idaho versus Payne.
All right, Mr. Thomas, your objection is noted. It's overruled. The court will be able to consider and ferret out these statements and properly consider what's in the record. You can continue,
Thank
Ms.
you.
William.
We asked, what's her name? Lori Ryan. Well, that was a lie. That was 2 husbands ago. So as I searched, what happened to your previous husband? She told us that he had died from a heart attack. Lie. He died from being shot. I asked, are there children? I was told we will be empty nesters. That's a lie. The police ask us about missing children. You answer, the children aren't missing. They're safe and happy. It's a lie. Your children, your poor children, were dead and buried on Chad's property, and my sister was told was sick and her health was failing. Well, that was a lie. I had seen her with my own eyes 2 weeks prior. She was very healthy. We have to go through her being disinterred and having an autopsy done. Was glad to get some answers and some truth after so many lies. But to find out what we knew in our hearts all along, she had been murdered by those who saw her as an obstacle to a plan. Planned her murder just as much as you planned the murders of your own children and your previous husband. Why? Why plan something so heinous? You had an affair with a married man. You lied to yourself by what is okay to sneak behind the backs of your spouses. You are not exalted beings, and your behavior makes you ineligible to be one. Well, why pick Chad? He was an average guy and you had married several men before him. He made you feel special and singled out. You tell yourself that you were high spiritual beings who have lived lives together through time. You felt powerful. This is too is a lie. But Chad has no real wealth. How will you live? You can easily have divorced your spouses and made your own perverted life together, but you need money. So you tell this story about people being dark and that they are zombies. This is how you justify who needs to be removed. You use this lie to justify the murders of 4 people whose deaths you profit from. But you could sit there and think, you've never met me and I don't know you. But I've always been able to tell when I am being lied to, and you are a liar, an adulteress, and a murderer. Because of the choices you made, my family lost a beloved mother, sister, aunt, and daughter. She is irreplaceable. She was 1,000 times the woman you will ever dream of being. Because of the choices you made, we have been hounded by media and those who revel in all of the salacious scandal you have stirred up. Because of you and your desire to get what you want at any cost, my family has been ripped apart. I helped raise Tammy's children. And because of you, they no longer have their mother or grandmother. And because of fear of losing another parent, they listen to the lies spewed by you and Chad. Our relationship is strained and most contact with them is gone. Your trial was the last thing my ailing mother had to live through. She declined in health as she heard through news reports all of the horrible things that happened, and she had to relive all the things we have tried to forget the last 4 years. My mother passed away in June, knowing that you will never come out of prison again. Her passing was marred by the fact that Tammy's children chose not to participate in her funeral because of fear of causing more drama. We were deprived of the chance to heal and have them realize how much we love them. We don't blame them for what happened, but we blame you and Chad for all the lies you've told and ripping apart this family. We didn't do anything. My parents are not evil. They did not deserve to lose their grandchildren on top of losing their daughter. I did not deserve to lose the relationships of children I helped raise, or a sister that was my dearest friend. I am not a dark person or a zombie, and for me and my family to be portrayed that way is unacceptable. Lucky for me, the world can see the truth as much as I can. Everyone now knows what liars you are. They now all know what horrible things you have done. You will have to live in your prison cell for the rest of your life. You are not an exalted being, and there's no huge event that is going to save you. No jail walls are going to fall so you can leave. No angels are coming to rescue you. You made judgments of others and determined if they should die based on the fact that they might do bad things and we need to kill them before they do. That is not how the atonement works. We cannot punish and judge others on things they haven't happened yet, but you did. You have also made choices that have led you here. You have been judged by the court and you have been found guilty. Your consequences are before you. I miss my sister every day. I will grieve her and now the loss of my mother for the rest of my life. I will always remember them. As for you, I choose to forget you. And as I leave this courtroom today, I choose to never think of you again. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the impact statement, Ms. William. Mr. Wood, if you'd like to call the next victim who wishes to speak.
That would be Vicky Hoban, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Hoban, you may come forward, offer your statement there at the lectern.
First, I'd like to thank the court for allowing me to give a statement here today. I'm Tammy St. Vicky. I was able to attend a big part of this trial, and so my first comment will be to address what I felt the defendant's behavior was. I felt she was shameful during the trial. It was apparent to me and others that the defendant did not take the proceedings in this courtroom seriously. It was extremely disrespectful to watch, especially during some of the most sensitive and heartbreaking testimony. Her smirking, her smiling, giggling, talking.
Judge, I'm going to object based on State versus Payne, based on the Idaho Constitution, based on Idaho Code 1953-06. She's supposed to give an impact statement which the defendant's criminal conduct had upon the victim. Payne states that the victim impact statement must relate to the characteristics of the victim and the emotional impact of the crime on the family.
We have a brief sidebar with Mr. Thomas and Mr. Wood.